Welcome to Mortgage Coach Tuesday. Every Tuesday morning, we're here dedicated to make you better. Whether you're coaching, advising clients, we want to help you do that better, and we want to help you leverage technology to do that. My name is Dave Savage, CEO of Mortgage Coach. What's up, everybody? I do want to remind you we do a lot of educational events. I want to give you a quick summary of those. Today's call will be recorded. It will be in our YouTube channel. So make sure, if you haven't already subscribed to the YouTube channel, do that now. So the email you're looking at on my screen right now, this goes out every week. So if you're not getting this, check your spam filters, Approved Mortgage Coach. Today we have Steve Brown. We're going to talk about technology and the future of technology. Next week we have Tim Brahim. The following week, Coach Derek Chitney. And we have Anthony the last Tuesday of the month. Also, I want to remind everybody, every single Tuesday, we're doing mobile training. So we're teaching you how to use your mobile device to be a better teacher, to be a better advocate to families. Again, every day of the week, there is live training going on here in Mortgage Coach, but today is all about a special interview. I want to welcome Steve Brown. Come on, Steve.
Good morning.
Morning, how you doing, brother? Good. So I had met Steve, I know it's been months now.
Yeah.
But we were both speakers at an event for RPM Mortgage Share. They had an event with both their loan officers and realtors. He was the keynote, so I was kind of the guy at the end. I think I had like 5 minutes. I don't know. But
you were good though.
Yeah, I
remembered it.
Yeah, I think I had 15 or 20, but whatever. But Steve wowed me. I mean, he really has a great grasp on the future. I'm going to have you just share your bio in just a minute. I want to do a bit of a debrief together about last week's call. So last week we interviewed Danny Harani, one of the absolute most successful loan officers in the country, and they're really doing a good job of leveraging technology. So I think you know this because you saw my 20-minute presentation, but just as a reminder to everybody, this is not a high-tech experience. This is a PDF. And this is the transactional way most loan officers are delivering value to families. At Mortgage Coach, we're all about turning that transaction into an advice-based experience on a mobile device, visually, graphs and charts, and then doing that in a way so that the family can self-educate. Danny does a great job of this. So I'm going to show a picture real quick here of Danny's Mortgage Coach mobile experience. So this is Danny Harani actually meeting with the client, leveraging technology. As a reminder to anybody that's on this call, all of you have access to Mortgage Coach. Some of you, your clients, your company pays for it. Some of you are investing yourself. But I do want to kind of close out the conversation, let you know where the puck is going, that there's technology and then there's how we utilize it as consumers.
Yep.
So let's make sure before this call is over, we talk about how we as consumers can adopt faster ourselves. Just like you took a lift to get here.
Yeah, and we're here in a WeWork space.
And we're in a WeWork space in Portland, Oregon. So let's make sure we just talk about anybody that's on this call. This is where the puck's going, but also how can you as a human being adopt faster?
Right, and I think it's very smart what you're doing. The biggest buyers of homes right now, the biggest group is millennials. Just recently that happened.
Right.
And they expect this experience.
They absolutely do. But I think that's the other part that while millennials expect it, everybody likes it.
Well, the thing is, everybody is kind of, even though they hate millennials because they're millennials, they want to be millennials in the way that they behave and interact with technology. So millennials might lead the way, but Gen X's and even certainly Gen Z is right up there as well. But every other generation is behaving like millennials.
Right.
So even though we talk about millennials and their behavior, we all have that behavior.
No doubt. We're all living on our mobile devices. It's just a question like a millennial might be using a dozen different apps for different reasons, and a baby boomer might just be texting and taking photos. So anyways, we're gonna cover that. I do want to shine a light and remind everybody it's a 2-minute read. A couple weeks ago, I put a post on LinkedIn, which I think not only is it a good message, but it provides several interviews of top loan officers that are leveraging technology wisely. So if you haven't checked that out, don't just read the 2 minutes, watch at least one of the interviews with a super successful loan officer that's leveraging tech. So with that said, I'm gonna turn it over to Steve And Steve, what I'd like to have you do, since this is your first time presenting in the mortgage coach community, if you wouldn't mind possibly giving everybody a little bit on your backstory.
Sure.
And then I've got your slides up here. Marcy, could you confirm that you can see both of us and you can see Steve's slides?
I can.
Okay, cool. One last thing before I just completely turn it over to you. We're going to have time for Q&A. So if you have questions for Steve, post those in the GoToWebinar panel, put in the questions. He's going to brief us for, I don't know, 20 minutes-ish, and then we're just going to go back and forth, and we're going to be looking for questions from you guys. So I'll turn it over for you for a little backstory and take over.
So Steve Brown, I was, should I sit in the middle here? Okay, go for it. All right. So I was at Intel for 30 years of my life, so I had a luxuriant mane of hair when I began there. That is now long gone, as you can all see. I spent a lot of time in lots of different roles at Intel, manufacturing, marketing, communications. I ran their event program for a long time. But most recently, I was Intel's Futurist, one of 2 Futurists at Intel, and heavily involved in strategic planning. So thinking out at least 10 years. Designing chips at Intel takes about 7 years. And so to get out beyond that, we had to go out at least 10 years to be thinking about how will people use technology? How will they incorporate it in their lives 10 years plus from now? And to do that, I mean, you have to understand a lot about technology. I'm steeped in technology. You have to understand the business process. So how will that technology get paid for? And what new business models will it enable? But most importantly, you have to understand and think about people. So my boss, when I was a futurist at Intel, was a cultural anthropologist, Dr. Genevieve Bell. And so I had it beaten into me by Genevieve, who is an amazing human being, that it all starts with people. You have to think about how people live, what they want out of life, what they're scared of. If you don't understand people and how the technology will interact with them, you don't have much of a prayer of figuring out whether a technology will be successful or not, and how it will shape people's lives and how people will use it. So that's my background. I left Intel just over a year ago. I'm now an independent futurist, so I speak all over the country, sometimes all over the world. I do consulting, but mostly it's speaking and future casting workshops. So workshops designed specifically to help companies scratch away and figure out what will be possible in a certain time frame so that they can build their strategic plans. So that's what I do. So what I wanted to talk about today, just sort of give us a framework to do hopefully a good Q&A together, is the idea of hacking reality, how we will use technology in the next 20 years to shape our environment, to shape our surroundings, to shape ourselves, and to change our perception of the world. So I use the term hacking reality because it's like life hacking. We have used technology for millennia to make our lives better. And do I just click on here to move forward? Okay. And we are going to see more impact from technology in the next 10 years than the last 50 years. I just turned 50 last month. And the computer image that you're seeing on the screen here, that is a computer that was in service in 1967, the year that I was born. Computers have come a fair way since then. And in that 50 years, if you think about the supercomputers that you have now in your pockets and purses, compared to this behemoth that you're seeing on the screen that relatively did nothing compared to what we have today, we're going to see more change in the next 10 years than the last 50 years. And the reason for that is because of the exponential nature of Moore's law and computer improvements over time. We live in exponential times where, because computers have such a profound impact on the way that we live our lives and the things that we are able to do, as computers get faster and faster, they enable us to do new things, and that accelerates our lives. We are probably in the last maybe 10 years of Moore's law. So Moore's law says that computers get twice as much performance, actually twice as many transistors on a chip every 2 years. Let's say we're in the last 10 years of Moore's law, and something's going to change to something else after that. But the payoff of Moore's law, the true payoff, because it's exponential, comes in that last decade. So that's why I think we'll see more profound change in the next 10 years than the last 50. Because if you looked at this chart, we're probably in the sort of the latter quarter, and look at what happens in the latter quarter. Performance just shoots up. And it's going to be applied in new ways, and that's what we're going to talk about today. What will be the impacts to us? I was just saying earlier, we're going to hack our reality. We're going to continue to shape the world around us to make it more productive, to make it more comfortable, to make it more useful for humans. So we're going to hack our surroundings. You can think about sort of concentric rings out from you, hacking our homes, hacking our societies, hacking our industries. Ultimately, we may even start to hack the planet, hack the weather cycle, hack the carbon cycle, etc. We're also going to start to hack ourselves. So using technology, whether it's bionics, implantables, ingestibles, hacking our immune systems, hacking our nervous systems, we're going to start to shape ourselves, to make ourselves stronger, better, to mitigate our weaknesses. And eyeglasses are an example of that have been around for 500 years. But how is that going to happen in the next 20? A profound change, even down to hacking our own DNA. And finally, if we can't achieve everything that we want with those two sort of buckets of hacking, we'll just hack our perception of the world. And you're going to see big advances in virtual reality, but most importantly, augmented and mixed reality, which will be the new display. That will be the new platform. So it's all about mobile right now. Augmented reality will be the thing. It will be the way that we interact with digital information and services 5 years or so from now. So that's where we're headed. That's sort of the bigger picture. Let's dig into a few bits and pieces. What is it that's going to make all this happen? One of the key things that is happening, sort of another big picture way of thinking about how technology will transform the world that we live in, is that we're going to see a much more intimate connection between the physical world and the digital world. And that means that the digital world, because that increases exponentially with Moore's law in terms of its capabilities, you will see the digital world affect the physical world much more profoundly than it has in the past. In part, that's because of the broad deployment of cheap, capable sensors, and sensors that can help the digital world understand what is happening in the physical world. And those sensors are anything from the types that you have in your smartphones. You probably have 7 to 10 sensors in the smartphone you keep with you. Some have temperature sensors, but they all have accelerometers, gyroscopes, compass. There's a variety of sensors. A camera is a sensor. So because smartphones made those sensors cheap, it's now possible to deploy them very broadly. And this is the idea, in part, of the concept known as the Internet of Things. So it is the digital world getting much smarter about what is happening in the physical world, which enables us to then hack reality by having the digital world make decisions on our behalf, and then make an impact on the physical world. That could be done with a robot, or flicking a digital switch, or changing a display, or providing information to a human being at the right time in the right place. But sensors are where it all starts, to help the digital world to see, smell, hear, touch what's happening in the physical world. Next thing that is kind of a big deal is this idea of smart objects. So putting intelligence and connectivity into any kind of object. Anything from, a coffee cup, to a teddy bear, as you see on the screen here, to your running shoes, to a robot on a factory floor, making objects smart. Now that is going to happen in part because the cost of technology is plummeting. But it's also going to happen because there's great utility in doing that. I have a picture of a teddy bear up on the screen because there's a fun example here. If you were to make a teddy bear smart, instead of dumb, which is today, dumb teddy bears are great for cuddling for little kids and giving them a feeling of safety and comfort, giving them something to talk to at bedtime. But it is also, it could be made into an object that could read a book to a child. Now that's a parent's duty and a parent's joy, is to have bedtime and read a book to a child. But what if you could do a teddy bear that was smart and connected and could read a book written in English and read it aloud to your child in Mandarin Chinese or French or whatever language you would like them to learn? And suddenly the teddy bear can do something you can't. And that teddy bear can then be monetized in completely new ways. So instead of charging $100 for a teddy bear, maybe you charge $20 for a teddy bear, and the reading service is $5 a month. So these smart objects enable you to sell services through them in a way that's not possible before. So you might want to start thinking, are there objects that you could create for your customers, for the mortgage industry, through which you could sell new services?
Hey, real quick, before we go off of that,
yeah,
would you consider the Amazon Echo one of those smart?
I would call that a service portal. Yeah, that's absolutely. I mean, they've created a speaker. Right. That would be the original dumb object. Right. But now that dumb object has added intelligence and connectivity, so that I can ask it to open and close my blinds, which I do. Right. I can ask it questions. I can buy things. I mean, that's what they really want you to do, is buy lots of things.
Right. Right.
But yeah, that would be an example of a portal, and they sell you those little Echo pucks. Right. When they're on sale for $40. Right. They cost $40 at least to make. They're doing that because they can monetize and sell stuff through it.
Yeah. So I bring that up to the mortgage space because I noticed in our Insane Productivity Friday training class on our Facebook page, there was a whole conversation going on around great gifts for home buyers. Mm-hmm. And Jen Duplessis, one of the smartest loan officers in the country, is giving those to her clients. Which first of all, I think it's smart. And then also at Mortgage Coach, we are designing interfaces so that a total cost analysis can be created, through the voice of whether it's the Amazon cloud. And so I do want to just put a circle on that for mortgage professionals. You should have one yourself, and you should be thinking about, if you do have a budget for closing gifts. By the way, next Tuesday I'm interviewing Tim Rahim around the perfect loan process and how to really emotionally connect with folks. He's going to be talking about closing gifts. So anyways, be thinking about closing gifts that not only add value for the family, they are memorable to the family, and they help create a client for life. So I think that's a smart one. Anyways, I want to jump in. Keep it rolling.
Right, and we'll come back to the subject of voice in a minute. So,
okay.
So you've had an image on the screen for the last few minutes while we were chatting there. I don't know if you've had time to figure out what that might be that you're looking at. This is a millimeter square computer. So this is a computer that's being developed by the University of Michigan a few years ago. That is so tiny, the photograph you're seeing is it's resting on the edge of a penny. Now, it doesn't do very much at this time, but what I want you to think about is this is where computers are going. They're going to become capable, much more capable than the computer you see here, but so small and so cheap that you can start to think about putting them into nearly anything. So free your mind from the cost of a computer today and think about what might they cost in the future and what might that make possible. I'll give you a couple of examples. This is a friend of mine, Dr. David Rose over at MIT, has developed a couple of objects just to test this concept. This is a smart umbrella. Instead of you having to peck through on your phone and check the weather report and see if it's going to rain, we have to worry about that here in Portland. It rains a lot. This umbrella automatically does that for you, checks the weather forecast because it's connected, and the end of it just glows softly when it says, you should take me with you. This is a wallet they developed, which is connected to your bank account. And it has a variable strength hinge in it. So most people aren't quite sure how much money they have in their bank account, so they spend until they get into trouble. This one, your wallet actually gets harder to open as your bank account nears zero. So you feel your bank balance and you feel how much you should be spending based on how hard it is to open your wallet. So just fun little applications. Once you have computing that's super cheap, where could you use them? Another example is this smart toothbrush, connected toothbrush. What's not, I think, well, that sounds like a silly idea. Why do I need a smart connected toothbrush? This is being used by a dentist because he can check how well you're brushing your teeth, check that you are brushing your teeth, and give you tips on how to improve how you brush your teeth. He knows that you're less risk, and so he can deliver dental insurance for about 30% less. That's a breakthrough. So you have these ideas of smart objects, and they're going to get smarter because we are making some big breakthroughs in artificial intelligence. You're probably hearing a lot about AI in the press. The way to think about AI, or machine intelligence is probably a better way of thinking about it, is new ways of designing algorithms, pieces of software, but also new hardware that's going to come behind that accelerates that software so that it can do the types of tasks that formerly only humans were good at. So I'll give you some examples. pattern recognition, so finding patterns in a big sea of data. Facial recognition, being able to spot a human face and figure out who that is with good probability. Fingerprint recognition. Voice recognition. This is why you're now able to talk to your phone. You're able to talk to Alexa, the Amazon devices. Artificial intelligence underpins all of those capabilities, including soon the ability to have a natural type of conversation with a computer versus having to say code words that we've all learned how to say the things the right way so the computer can understand us. Artificial intelligence, as well as having those baseline capabilities, is also going to be able to be put into roles where it's able to make decisions that a human formerly made, whether that is judging somebody's credit risk, thinking about whether they should be given a loan or not, but also driving a car. And we're going to see a big change in that regard soon as well, so we'll get to that shortly. Robots are becoming smart. Robots have been in our factories building our cars for 40 years. What's changing is that artificial intelligence and new sensors are enabling these robots to now understand the world that they inhabit and to move through it intelligently and to do intelligent tasks. So think about your Roomba on steroids. It was the ability for robots to understand their environment and navigate it safely, and the key there is safely. Robots are big, powerful creatures. If they aren't aware of the humans around them, they could cause damage, they could cause harm. So it is the breakthrough in artificial intelligence, machine vision, the ability for robots to see, hear, and understand the world around them that is making the difference. That is what is allowing robots to show up in almost every sector. I'm going to dive into a couple of these just to give you some examples, but self-driving trucks, agricultural robots that thin out pots, back-breaking labor for humans. There's a robot here you see called Sam 100 who's laying bricks. Robots in retail doing doing stock taking. We'll talk about the delivery robot shortly, but you can see here robots showing up in every sector. And whether they will show up in the mortgage sector doesn't really seem to be an obvious application there. But I want you to know this is a big phenomenon, and it's going to affect jobs. And that may affect you peripherally because suddenly you'll have customers that don't have jobs anymore. Robots that fly are drones. Drones are no longer just cameras on that fly to take cute pictures at the top of your house. They are finding lots of industrial applications in agriculture, in construction, in surveying the land, in mining, and here you see even a guy who's managing to do some surfing, pulled behind a drone. They're even being used in China with flamethrowers on them to burn debris off power lines. So lots of applications of drones. A robot with 4 seats inside it and 4 wheels is an autonomous vehicle. You're hearing a lot about this in the press, and with good reason. This will transform human mobility, I'm quite sure of it. It gives access to people who formerly could not afford to travel in a car because it will be a cheaper form of transportation than even a Lyft or an Uber today. It gives access to people who are too young, too old, or just unable to drive for whatever reason. So a huge breakthrough. One thing to think about here is the #1 job in 29 out of the 50 states in America is driving. Truck driving, delivery driving, taxi driving. So there's a profound impact on the employment landscape. You take a drone and make it big enough, you can put people inside it. Even 4 years ago, as a futurist, I thought, no, we're not going to see flying cars anytime soon. Sometimes we get it wrong, and I'll be the first to admit it. We are now, well, I am tracking 10 or 12 different companies that have a viable path to creating passenger drones. So drones that are big enough to take 1, 2, some of them have plans up to 8 passengers. These would be autonomous, so they're being targeted at places like Dubai, Singapore, where people need to move from the top of one building to the top of another. And so you just get in, hit the button, and it takes you where you need to go. No pilot required. So pretty freaky, but if this happens, this is a big deal. First trials are happening in Dubai, wait for it, this year. We talked a little bit with Dave about voice control. Voice control is still pretty cheesy. If any of you have used it on your phone, it's okay, but it's going to get a lot better. And this comes with advancements in artificial intelligence and artificial intelligence capability both in the cloud, but also soon coming onto your phone, which will accelerate artificial intelligence in your phone and make the capabilities related to voice control better. So big advances coming there.
Okay, guys, so a couple things. We've still got a few more key concepts to go through, but one of the goals here is to make this a conversation. I mean, we're going to have a conversation. I'm taking notes in Evernote, but I want your questions. Joe, you've got a great question. We're going to get to it. So one, we want questions, and I also want to get a sense for how many of you are using voice. You know, are you, using it to make a text? Are you using the transcription capabilities? So if you're on this call and you're using voice in questions, let us know how you're using voice, because I'm just curious how the industry is doing there.
Yeah, I'd be fascinated.
And so, guys, participate. A few more minutes of briefing on key concepts, and then I hope to jump into our Q&A and have lots of Q&A.
That should be the best part of the conversation.
It will be. But keep it on, so great.
Okay, well, I wanted people to give people something to think about so that we'd get questions, so you don't think, oh, I had access to a futurist and why didn't I ask him that? So that's the whole idea. Yeah. So voice control today, it's that cheesy thing you have in your phone or on your Amazon Echo. It is being embraced broadly by Fortune 500 companies in the form of chatbots and conversational platforms. If you look at Microsoft, for example, they are building out what they call conversation as a platform, capabilities that enterprises can embrace to help semi-automate the process of talking to customers. You're seeing huge investments by Facebook in this regard, with Messenger and being able to have brands now plug into Messenger. So all of the major platforms, whether it is Microsoft, Google, Facebook, Amazon, they are all running as fast as they can with voice and figuring out how to build those capabilities into their platform so that other brands, other services can connect into their platforms. So maybe there is an on-ramp to your mortgage service, which for a millennial, talking to a chatbot is way preferable than talking to a human being. Sounds crazy, but people are like that. So that may be something to think about. Should you be looking at voice as a platform, as a mechanism for bringing in new customers, for interacting with customers, answering their early questions, and then eventually handing them over to a human to turn that into a sale. Hacking perceptions is a huge topic we could talk about for hours just on itself. But virtual reality, which immerses you in a 100% digital environment, and particularly augmented reality and mixed reality, which blend digital and physical, so that you could be stood looking around a room and see a combination of physical objects and digital objects around you. This is going to be the way that we compute 5 years from now. Huge investments here from Apple, Google, a company called Magic Leap. There are a number of them out there vying for this position. This is a big, big deal. If you haven't spent time looking at this, if you've not experienced virtual reality, find a way to experience it. You will understand what I'm talking about then. Another thing that I think is going to be big in the next 5 years is this concept of hearables, wearable technology for your ears. The one you see here, the nice red ones you see, Dave's brandishing his at me, he has some AirPods here, wireless headphones. The ones you see here, the red ones, are made by a company called Waverly Labs. I'm on their Kickstarter sign-up list. Should get mine soon. They do real-time language translation. So you can pop those in your ears, be in a foreign country. You will listen to someone speaking and it will translate it into your language of choice. This is where we're heading. Having headphones that can also block out certain sounds you don't want to hear, perhaps the screech of the New York subway train, perhaps it's a baby crying over the other side of the room, but you still want to hear the conversation of the person you're talking to. So intelligence in your ears to help you hear in the new ways. So it's not just about hearing better, but hearing things you couldn't hear before and hearing in new ways and having new services available to you. So it's a new portal for services to your brain. This one's, again, something we can talk about for hours, and I spend a lot of time talking to local government here in Oregon about this, what I call the Automation Tsunami. We have had automation for hundreds of years, all the way back to the Luddite era of the loom. But we are about to see another big wave of automation coming as a result of artificial intelligence advancements. And that is going to displace people from a lot of jobs. There are others who will be just fine. There are others who will just be able to do more in their jobs than they could before because they now have automated assistants. But this is something that we should all be paying attention to. It is something that you should be paying attention to because it is going to affect your customers, your future customers. So huge impacts here. We can talk about this in Q&A if you want to dig into that some more. The reason it's happening is we've gone from the era of improving and extending our capabilities by building mechanical muscles, because we worked in an era where you were rewarded for your work you could do by how much physical labor you could do, to now moving to the era of mechanical minds. And we are building chips now that that mirror the kinds of capabilities that our brains have, and that therefore will accelerate artificial intelligence capabilities. So this is a chip from IBM called True North. There are other chips being developed by other chip companies. Think about this in terms of the way computer graphics used to be 20 years ago. They were pretty horrible. And now they are photorealistic. The reason that happened is partly Moore's law, but partly because we created specific chips designed to accelerate graphics processing units. You have one in your phone. That's why your phone can make amazing graphics and smooth video and that sort of thing. The same thing is about to happen with artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence accelerator chips that enable us to have a really amazing experience with our computers in the future. So all of these together, as I mentioned at the beginning, they are linking the digital and the physical world together. There's a whole range of these technologies that span and link those two worlds together, enabling the speed of Moore's law to have impact much more intimately within the physical world. It's going to lead us to this era of an idea of human-machine partnerships. Whatever role, whatever job you're in, including yours, if you look at a business process and divide it up into tasks, you'll see many companies are going to start thinking about how do I divide that between algorithms, people, and robots. And that each of those has different strengths. So humans are great at creativity, empathy. Right now they have better dexterity than machines, and their innate humanity. What the business you're in, spending time with customers, understanding them, helping them feel comfortable, you're golden there. That's always going to be needed. But there are other things that algorithms and robots are good at. You can see the lists of those here. We're going to have this idea of augmented workers, workers who are augmented by technology to help them do their jobs. What you're seeing here is a screenshot of somebody looking through augmented reality glasses, actually a helmet in a construction environment, being guided on what to do next. We're at a time in our history where we can start to reimagine every industry, every business, and the way that we live our lives. And I think what I want us to do is take you through some of those technology building blocks to help you understand what those are and start to think about how will they have impact in the world. So I'm going to stop there because I really want to get questions. It's the best part of doing this. This
has been great. So I don't know, I mean, I've got lots of notes, lots to think about. I do want to keep this screen up for a second. Please write that down. And then also, Marcy, if you could put Steve's email in here. I think you're a great speaker in the mortgage industry right now. So I know if you're on this call and you're a branch manager and you think you'd make a great speaker at your upcoming sales rally, please forward this along to your leadership team. Steve is, he's one of the best in the world at being a futurist. And I also saw you speak to a room of loan officers and realtors, and it was a great setup for a mortgage company to come in and talk about, hey, this is how we can change. So please make sure you write that down, Marcy, make sure you put that in chat so folks have access to it. So I'm going to take down your screen real quick, and I hope I'm going to see questions, guys, because this is, we've still got 25 minutes of value here. So let's see what we got. Okay, so it's just logistics. We like WOW, so great job on that. Voice to text, super smart. I do voice to text all the time. Using voice, so a lot of voice to text, and by the way, if you're on this call and you're like, what's voice to text? You need to know what voice to text is. We're not going to do any technical support right now, but figure it out.
If only to save your thumbs when you're older.
It really is, and here's the thing, it's just really training yourself, and let's make sure we get to that in 10 minutes, because I'm a technologist, and it took me time to go, okay, I could have done voice with that. Training yourself to like do something that you know is better and easier, it's not so easy.
We get in habits, and
yeah.
You have to get into a new pathway.
Yeah, and I think I'm good at adopting new technology compared to the norm, but it wasn't easy for me. But it just took this, I know there's a better way, I gotta keep reminding and not give up. So let us know if you've got some other things. All right, so we got a good question from Joe. And Joe is leader of a big sales organization. So we're talking about a guy here that is a leader over hundreds of loan officers and super successful, and he wants to know, what efficiencies do you see coming in mortgage origination process with the increase of technology? So by the way, we're going to ask this question to Steve right now, but I want to ask you guys, what do you think are some of the first things we're going to see shift from a technology perspective in the mortgage industry? So the best way to get value from this call is to think through that question, share your answer, but how would you answer it?
So I'm actually glad that Joe asked that question, because you said, oh, he's a good speaker. I'm not a good enough speaker that I remember to include blockchain in my slide deck. So this gives you an opportunity to make good on that. One of the other big disruptive technologies that is going to be deployed from now onwards is a technology called blockchain. Now, blockchain is the underlying technology of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies like it, like Ethereum. Think of it as a distributed database that is almost impossible to corrupt. By distributed, what I mean is, if you and I have a transaction and we store that information in the blockchain, and you have that transaction happen on your computer here, a copy of that transaction is included on your computer. It's also included on every other computer that is using blockchain. So it's very hard to change that after the fact. It's also linked in a chain with the next transaction and linked to the previous transaction with military-grade encryption. So it is impossible to change it. So blockchain as a technology is used for Bitcoin, as I say, and other cryptocurrencies, but it can be used for lots of other things. So Maersk, the huge shipping company, they are using blockchain to try and get rid of paperwork from all of their shipping container traffic.
Wow.
Artists like, what's her name, Imogen Heap, who is a British recording artist. Her music is very often sampled and used in other songs. She is looking at using blockchain as a foundation for fair trade music, so that she can say, yeah, you can use my music, but encoded in this, it tells you how you can use it and how you have to pay me to use it. Blockchain is also going to use, I would expect we will have blockchain encoded digital passports in the future. Any type of qualification, so your degree certificates, your certifications will be blockchain encoded. So there's no putting things on your resume and kind of embellishing them, that goes away. But also blockchain can be used for contracts. This is where it gets interesting to you guys in mortgage land. Smart contracts are embedded into the blockchain mechanism. What it allows you to do is to say, if this happens and if that happens, then this will execute. So what it means is your friends in the escrow sector may no longer be needed, for example. What blockchain does is it brings trust to a world of distrust. And it enables two strangers to come together who don't know each other. Sound familiar? Happens in your industry rather a lot.
Right.
And builds a platform of trust so that they can know that if they hand over the money, the contract will come to them with the title to the house. So suddenly you don't need as many trusted parties in that process to help you along the way and help the transaction occur. Sound like familiar territory for a lot of you? So there are people who are very close to blockchain. I spent a lot of time learning about it myself, but there are people who are really looking into this, and they are saying that the entire financial services sector 20 years from now is just software. Now, I say that to get your attention. I don't mean it to be alarming. I think it's going to take quite some time for blockchain to find its way. It's a brand new technology in terms of the way it's starting to be implemented. Bitcoin's been around for quite some time. But in terms of getting deployment, every major industry is looking on ways to use it. The healthcare industry is looking how to use it for healthcare records.
Right.
The retail sector is looking at using it. Anytime you have a transaction of any kind, blockchain can help make that more secure and build more trust between the two parties. And any place that there are humans that have been deployed to help boost that trust, you may need less of them. So whether that is a stock exchange, stock exchanges are always about, I'll give you money, you give me shares. If you could automate that, you don't need a stock exchange anymore. You can run it all on blockchain. Similarly, when you're dealing with mortgages, do you need a broker? I think so, yes. You are spending a fortune. As a human being, you are putting down a lot of money, most of which you don't have right now, to buy the most expensive thing you will buy in your life. You need another human being to give you confidence and to guide you through that. But if you know that that is going to be your core value add, it's not that you are a gatekeeper to money. It's not that you are able to do all of the paperwork and transactions. That's not your core value add. Your core value add is the humanity that you bring, the comfort that you bring, the relationship you have with your customers. If you know that that 20 years from now is perhaps the only thing you have left, then you know to double down on that now and make that central to your brand.
So, guys, that was profound. And again, this blockchain, we're talking 10 years or more, because we had to talk about this.
Yeah.
I mean, now it is possible that if a big player like a Quicken or Big Bank innovated within 5 years, it could happen sooner. But here's what we know. Like, what we can control is we know, does anybody think technology is going to be less? Like, the puck's not going there? I know no one on this call believes that there's going to be less technology in the future. There's going to be more. And I also know you wouldn't either be on the mortgage coach call if you didn't believe in advice. You know, I'm not a transactional loan officer, and my job is to pre-qualify you and conduct a transaction. You wouldn't be part of our community if that's all you thought our job was. You believe that your job is to be an advisor or a coach, which, by the way, aligns with what you said. So you really need to become that person, but leverage technology in an extraordinary way.
Yeah, I think so. I think knowing where that technology is going, knowing where to look that it might come from, knowing where the flags are. So as a strategic planner, one of the things that I do when I look at a technology, I say, okay, what are the flags I should be looking for to say, if I see this happen in the market, that is building my confidence that this thing I thought might happen is going to happen. So you mentioned one, which would be, if my rocket mortgage starts to accelerate in terms of the time it takes to deliver because somehow blockchain is being used by Quicken to improve that process and reduce cost, then I know that the clock's ticking and I probably have 2 years to make sure that I have blockchain in my process that I can compete. So it's knowing where to look for those signals, where are the likely places that they will come from. And I think, watching the big financial institutions, every bank already has a senior blockchain expert and a team of people figuring out what does this do to transform financial services. So that's another place to watch. Read the business press, read the financial press, and always look for the word blockchain. That is going to be the same way that HTML was the enabling technology for the web, because it was the way that everybody agreed to talk, to say this is the way a web page is built and laid out, and this is what the commands mean to say this is a column here and this is red over here. Blockchain is to trust as HTML was to the web. So do everything you can to learn about blockchain.
All right, let's jump back into Q&A there. All right, open listings, will that replace us? I think we'll be able to get, I'm gonna have to start skimming some of these with the advent of technology like digital mortgage. Do you think the job of a loan officer will be changing? So I mean, I think he answered that. It's gonna change, and to net it out, it's about being that human connection, providing that confidence and clarity.
And that's the same in, I think, any industry right now. And I advise people in retail, in manufacturing, in transportation, in entertainment, and I tell them all the same thing. Look to the humanity at the core of your brand and figure out, how do I use technology to amplify that humanity, to amplify the human connection with customers, and not to replace humans. I do some work with the fast food industry, and they panicked with $15 an hour, and they are racing to get every human out of the kitchens, every human out of the serving hatch that they can, and replace it with a machine. And I've told them, you're slitting your own throats, because your differentiation as a brand is the human connection ultimately, because your competitors can do just the same as you. They can automate the crap out of that. And then what's the difference?
Right.
So being able to figure out what is the core of your brand, what is your brand value, and amplify it with technology is what every brand on the planet, including mortgage lenders, need to do.
So I want everybody on this call to further think of yourself as your local. So you're a local representative. You're a referral-based representative. So while you might have a consumer direct strategy, at the end of the day, what you bring to the families that you serve and the realtors that you serve is that you're local, and you really understand that local market in an intense way. And your referral-based code human, and that means you really need to leverage technology like you've never done it before. And let's get into that conversation. We've got about 10 minutes left. I do want to net out a few things, because I think in the mortgage space, we all know that artificial intelligence is changing the game. We all know that video is changing how we communicate. I mean, we're doing this live video conversation right now. So I think it's safe to assume, and we know voice is changing the game. Would you think if you were a mortgage professional and you were giving them advice on how are they going to do a better job of leveraging voice, leveraging video, what should they do to train themselves? You know, like, I know where the puck is going. I know I'm here. And remember, most of the people in the mortgage industry are 54 or older.
Right.
So we're talking boomers or late X. We've got some millennials. But what advice do you have to change the human piece of this?
Well, yeah, I think the first thing to do is become comfortable with the technology yourself. So if you're not using voice, if you're only using it to do voice to text, push yourself to get beyond that. So if you don't have one yet, go get yourself one of these smart speakers, whether it's the Google smart speaker. I think the best one on the market still is the Amazon Echo. It's $50. It's not going to break the bank. They take 5 minutes to set up, and then you can start to load what you call skills on them. So the same way you have apps on your phone, you load skills, and there are something like 20,000 skills now for Alexa, and start to connect to the things you care about. And just get used to that. I use it for my morning briefing every day. I have it linked to the news sources that I like, and I walk out into my kitchen in the morning. I'm British, so I make a cup of tea, and the first thing I say is, Alexa, read me the news. And suddenly that's how I get my news in the morning. So that's one of the things I do. You want to do something different. For those of you interested in sports, connect it to the services for your favorite teams or favorite sports and use it for that. But train your own brain that that's just normal, because your customers find that to be the norm. So I would start there, then start looking into, maybe if you have a big enough IT department, maybe you just need one person to do this, because it's actually pretty easy to do. Start thinking about, how do I build a voice application of my own? How could I build a service for Alexa, for Facebook Messenger, which allows people to have at least a first-line conversation chat with me, or a proxy for me, because now I'm making a digital version of myself that I can start to use as a first line. So I can clone myself in the voice platform world, which is a weird concept, but that's kind of the way it feels, is you can now start to make a version of yourself to start to interact with more people.
So two things. So Marcy, if you're listening in right now, could you create a poll question? And basically the question is, do you have some type of voice-only device, which could be Google, Amazon? I want to know what percentage of the people have it. By the way, if you just want to let me know in Q&A if you have one and if you're using it that way, let us know. I would also tell everybody, when you think of where the puck is going at Mortgage Coach, is we're building these things right now. In fact, we won a contest with Amazon, came in second place, but not bad considering there was hundreds, maybe even thousands of submissions to create an app. And I would tell you that some of the content that we're creating, like a recording of this call, will be available in those services very shortly. So this is something that we're we see it between the Facebook bot, the Amazon, and I'm just using those particular brands because they're so well known and they're so prolific as platforms. So Mortgage Coach is going here, and we'll be releasing those things literally by the end of the year.
I'm glad to hear you said it, because the next thing I was going to say was start to require that there is voice support in the platforms you use from your suppliers. Didn't want to say it because I thought if he hasn't got it, then maybe I'm going to screw him over. But
you're not screwing.
You're way ahead of me, so
yeah,
you're good. You're good.
Yeah.
So,
and it's funny. There's actually a CTO of one of the 20 largest lenders in the country on here. He just made a comment. And I for a long time have been telling the C-suite, you need to make sure that you work with technology providers that have great APIs. Because at the end of the day, as a lender at the C-suite, they need to have technology that delivers a great consumer digital experience, but they need to have that integrated in a way that the people that use the technology can use it in a very seamless way. And he just called it out. We need to make sure that not only do they have great APIs that integrate, but they need to have a great voice portal. That is the modern mortgage experience.
Yeah, and I think thinking about it as a two-step thing, I mean, you want to build voice capabilities into the place that people come to you.
Right.
So that, to some extent, you can expect people to come to you, but also you need to go to and build capabilities where the voice platforms are, where the people are. And people are on Messenger, people are on Amazon Echo, people are on these other platforms. Use their APIs to build a capability and a bridge into your business.
Love it. So by the way, I'm going to push a question right now. It's not exactly how I wanted to ask it, but I want you to answer. I just want to get a feel for who has a voice technology, yes or no. And you guys know how I roll. We put these up. We need 70% of you to vote. I don't care if you vote no or yes. I just want to know. But I don't know if 70% of you don't vote. And right now only 41% have. So let's give me a vote. 50%, 51%. I'm going to stay on this poll question until we get 70%. So come on, guys. What's that?
You're brutal.
Yeah, I mean, we're here to learn together. So we can't learn if people don't play. All we need is a simple vote. So even if you were multitasking, just zoom back over right now, give us a vote. All right, that's good. I'm good with that participation level. So I'm going to show everybody, and I'm pretty impressed.
Yeah.
65%. By the way, Mortgage Coach community, you are innovators. I think the general population would have been a lot less than that. For the 35% that the answer was no.
I was going to say, it would depend on the age group. If you are Gen Y or Gen Z, it's going to be much higher.
And it's not. I mean, we're the mortgage industry.
I would say if you did the general public.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it's going to be very skewed
to
right. Gen Z, Gen Y and Gen Z after that.
Okay.
For Gen Z, this is people under the age of 18. This is a no-brainer.
Yeah, it's 90%. So I purchased that. I don't understand the risk of ESCO being online. We're getting a little.
So let's talk about
you want to talk about
that?
that?
Don't be afraid of an Amazon Echo. I mean, yes, it is listening all the time, but it only switches on. It only sends data back to Amazon if you say the trigger word, which you can set to be either Alexa, Echo, or computer, if you feel like that. So unless you say Alexa, it doesn't wake up. It doesn't send any data. It does trigger sometimes. It does mishear you. But if you're really worried about it, there's a button on the top of it where you can switch off the microphone, and it turns red. And that says, I'm not listening. So if you're worried about privacy, switch it off when you don't want people listening.
So by the way, this is a really good one. Brad, thank you for the candor and to make it thrown out. I'm going to read this and then let's talk to it. We've got about 5 minutes left, so we might get into one more question. If you have one, get it posted. Anyways, Glenn Bill, by the way, he's a top realtor. I interview him a lot. I actually interviewed him recently. And he said, real estate is the most emotional transaction in America.
Agreed.
Which I agree. By the way, we all agree. And I don't think it will become less emotional. We all agree with that. So how do you see emotional intelligence intersecting with the digital age, AKA AI? How would you answer that?
AI is going to get better and better at reading human signals. So there are already developments in AI that allow cameras with an AI backend on them to sense human emotion, to be able to tell is my person getting irate? Are they delighted? How do they feel right now? And that is coming both through cameras, looking at visual cues from the face, because we have all these muscles that we contort in certain ways to convey, and humans just naturally pick up on that. AI is going to get to the point where it can do that very accurately, perhaps more accurately than humans soon. Also looking at voice patterns, so AI listening to your voice and be able to figure out from that, are you irate, are you delighted, are you whatever state you might be. It's already being used by some major companies who, for example, in tech support, when you call and they can identify that you might be a bit pissed off, to be able to send you to somebody who can help calm you down. So computers are going to get better and better at reading those cues. The question is then, from a business standpoint, how do you use that information to make business decisions to help serve the customer better?
That's interesting. I hadn't even thought of those use cases. I mean, those things 5 years, 10 years out, or do you think it's...
Here today.
Wow.
Here today, they will just get better and better.
That's interesting. But my answer to that, Brad, is right now you can use video to amplify you. Let's face it, when people do business with you, it's all about earning that trust and respect. Now, if someone comes into your office, video can still be a great way to connect when they leave your office, but if people aren't coming into your office, you can amplify your voice and amplify your personality today by using video in smart ways. But that's interesting to see that coming. Let's see if we got another question to come in. Can we do a redo on the entire interview with that? Sorry about that. This is the voice.
This is the echoey room.
Yeah, this is the echoey room that hopefully won't be so echoey soon. Let's see. All right. So I want to just, any other advice to help people just become better themselves? Like, what are some other things that they can do? Get an echo. I always tell people, make sure that if you're traveling, check in. If you haven't done Uber, do Uber. But it's almost like, to be a great mortgage professional, you need to be fiscally literate, which means a lot of things. I don't have time to get in right now, but I think the lender of the future needs to be mobile literate. So just rapid fire as many things as you can in the next 3 minutes. What is mobile literate in today's world?
If you have kids, ask your kids what they're doing and figure out, get them to train you how to do it. That's the first step.
Yeah.
Second thing, if you are not using Uber and Lyft to get around, I mean, I came to this WeWork office today using Lyft. It was the easiest experience, but it takes you 5 minutes to get it set up. So if you haven't done that yet, do that one.
Mm-hmm.
I book all my trips away with Airbnb.
Book online trips, use Airbnb.
I use TripIt.
I use TripIt. Huge.
Great app. If you're traveling at all, it is a wonderful way. What you do is when you get your travel plans on email, you just forward them to plans at TripIt, and it automatically figures it out from you, sticks it in the mobile app, sends you reminders, lets you know when your flight's delayed. It's wonderful. So TripIt is a good one. What else would I recommend?
And by the way, community, we got 2 more minutes. If you have ideas on what is the mobile literate mortgage professional, let us know. I'm going to throw another one in. Are you using Zillow or some MLS in your back pocket? If you are a lender with HPM, and are you using it as a consumer? Start thinking that if you want to be mobile literate and be of service to the future consumer, and let's face it, millennials, they're not the future, they're here. You need to do certain things. Are you listening to podcasts? I listen to podcasts.
I do
on my mobile phone. Let us know what you're doing. We got 1 more minute.
Tunity is a fun one. Tunity is an app that if you're in a bar and the TV's on, but they don't have the volume up and you want to hear it, you point your phone at the TV, it figures out what the station is, and then it pipes the audio through your phone. So you put your headphones on and you can listen to the TV.
I love that. I love that. So by the way, as we wrap this up, let us know what you thought of today's call. Did we surpass your expectations with value? If you're a guest to this call and you want to learn more about Mortgage Coach, click the last option. I want to get a demo of Mortgage Coach. So let us know what you thought of today's call. Also, I want to close the call with a reminder. I'm going to show my screen real quick. Be checking this out. So if you're multitasking, time to go back to your screen. And I want to remind you that every day of the week, we're here to make you better. We're here to train you on how to use your mobile device, get started with Mortgage Coach, interview someone amazing. Next week I'm interviewing Tim Brahim. We're going to talk about the perfect loan process. The following week I'm going to talk about 5 things to close out your year great for next year. And remember, every single Wednesday at 11 o'clock Pacific, we're teaching you how to use your mobile device. So we want to be a resource to not only deliver great technology, but to help you use technology so that you can be a great coach and advisor to today's families and tomorrow's families. Thank you very much for your time, my friend.
My pleasure.
Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this call, everybody. Thank you for trusting us with an hour of your day. And please make sure you go to our calendar online. Make sure you don't miss the next Mortgage Coach training. Take care, everybody.